Hi again. We're in Walter Rauschenbusch, Christianity and the Social Crisis, page 71. Walter is now addressing Christ's insistence on conduct and indifference to ritual. In our study of the Old Testament prophets, we saw that indifference or hostility to ritual religion was a characteristic of prophetic religion, and that this turned the full power of the religious impulse into the sluice of ethical conduct. Jesus was a successor of the prophets in this regard. He used the temple as a place to meet men. He valued the temple as a house of prayer and fiercely resented the intrusion of the money-making spirit within it. But otherwise it was of no religious importance to him. According to the Gospel of John, he foretold a stage of religion in which the old burning issue of the true place of worship would be antiquated and dead. And he's referencing here, of course, John 4, the discussion with the Samaritan woman. Stephen, who understood Jesus better than most of the apostles, had scant reverence for the temple. And there he references, of course, the fatal sermon of Stephen in Acts chapter 6 and 7. The temple sacrifices are mentioned by Jesus only to say that the duty of fraternal reconciliation takes precedence of the duty of proceeding with sacrificial ritual. Since the exile and the dispersion of the people, the minor and personal acts of ritual had really become of greater practical importance in the life of the Jews than the temple sacrifices. About some of these minor ritual acts, Jesus was in perpetual collision with the guardians of customary piety. They did violence to human needs to keep the Sabbath intact. They wanted men to look solemn and fast in contrition, even when they were happy in God. They concentrated attention on the things that a man must not touch and eat for fear of ceremonial defilement, and thereby made men indifferent to moral defilement. Jesus, on the other hand, held that the Sabbath was made to serve man, not to break him, that a man should fast only when fasting was the fit outward expression of his inward state of mind, and that no outward contact with tabooed things would make any difference in the moral status of a man, for that is determined only by the good or evil thoughts and impulses which proceed from his own soul. In his indifference to the law of clean and unclean food, he not only brushed aside the traditions of the elders, but contradicted the sacred law itself. These religious duties were supposed to serve God. Jesus was indifferent to them when they did not serve men, and hostile to them when they harmed men. He ridiculed the models of piety, who were so punctilious about ritual observances and so indifferent to wrong moral relations. They faithfully gave a tithe of everything to religion, down to the mint, the anise, cumin in their garden beds, but such little things as justice and mercy and good faith, the qualities on which human society rests and which constitute the real burden of the law, they quite overlooked. When he saw a Pharisee straining the milk lest haply he should swallow a drowned gnat, and so transgress the law in eating a strangled beast, he saw there a type of what these religious men were doing all the time, straining out gnats and swallowing camels. They wiped the outside of the platter, but within it was filled with extortion and excess. Their food was acquired by injustice and consumed in luxury. Thus religion, which ought to be the source of morality, drugged and blinded the moral judgment, so that the very teachers of religion locked the door of the kingdom of God in men's faces. They even nullified the fundamental obligation of the child to the parent by teaching that if a man gave money to the temple and thus supported the ritual worship of God, he was free from the duty of supporting his parents. Thus religion had become a parasite on the body of morality and was draining it instead of feeding it. This revolutionary attitude to inherited religion, which so jarred the earnest and painstaking representatives of traditional piety, is explained by Christ's conception of the kingdom of God. They thought it was a Jewish affair and would rest on careful religious observances. He thought it was a human affair and would rest on right human relations. He would tolerate nothing that hallowed wrong, not even religion. He had no patience with religious thought, which hampered the attainment of a right social life. To them, the written law inherited from the past was the supreme thing. To Jesus, the better human life to be established in the future was the supreme thing. And the next time he's going to be dealing with the teaching of Christ on wealth. And I'll put two links into two types of tradition. We did a tract on this for use with Jehovah's Witnesses, and others too, for whom the word tradition is a dirty word, but as used by Paul anyway, in Thessalonians and elsewhere, the word tradition can be good and it can be bad. And there are traditions that all Christians should hold. And those are the ones Paul says we should hang on to for dear life. So that video or two are linked on your screen. Next time, Christ's teaching on wealth.